Greetings from the set of Metro and More at Metropolitan Community College, serving more than 50,000 students with over 120 programs at our 8 locations in the daytime, evening, weekends, or online. I'm your host, Kent Pavelka. Welcome again to Metro and More. More of what you need to know about Metropolitan Community College as we get our fourth quarter update, Greater Omaha Chamber of Commerce fourth quarter update from David G. Brown, the president and CEO of the Greater Omaha Chamber of Commerce. Always a treat. I always look forward to this. Maybe it's because we don't see each other often.
Yeah,
just 4 times a year. Huh?
Yeah, we used to do this a little bit more frequently, and now we're trying to cram everything into 4 times, but it works out great. I'm glad to be here too.
Good to see you again. It's always informative, and I enjoy getting the latest chamber update. The fourth quarter in the books for 2014. How did the fourth quarter go? Well,
you know, that's our year end, of course, and so we've just done our annual meeting and have provided a lot of year-end information, and we had a really good year. We ended up beating virtually all of our economic development numbers. So we ended up with about 73 projects this past year, which for us means companies that we're working with that are expanding or have come to this community as a new company. We've landed about $607 million in capital investment, which is over our goal for the year. About 3,200 jobs, so that exceeded our goal for the year as well. Startups, we ended up with 12 startups this year that we helped get started and generated about $13 million in venture capital. That's a little below what our 5-year average should be, but that's kind of the nature of entrepreneurship. We'll have 12 this year, we might have 40 next year. So we're pretty confident that we'll end up hitting our 5-year number, which is about 100 startups over that 5-year period. We ended up helping far more than 200 small businesses grow their businesses some throughout this past year. And we hit virtually all of our talent numbers, all of our public policy numbers. We were supportive in the land bank and got that. We supported getting that ordinance passed at the city council level with the mayor, and then the mayor appointed the board, and so now we're working on phase 2 of that, called the creation of a community development finance institution, which will help finance those projects that come through the land bank. So chamber membership grew last year, so we had a net gain in members, ended up in the black, as you would expect us to as a business organization. And I think with more than 150 events and really good membership satisfaction, we had a really good year last year.
Is that kind of the focus of the fourth quarter, to as it were, scramble around to make sure you get your numbers for the whole year?
Well, you know, we hopefully have hit most of our numbers by the end of the third quarter. I mean, that's usually our target, so that we have some internal stretch goals that we try and hit, which to me usually means that, with the exception of membership numbers, where you're going to have a couple of months that you've got to count towards the end of the year, you got to be well on your way to getting your numbers done. So I really spend the last quarter more planning for the next year. Just closing out the kind of programming that we had already done the prior 3 quarters. So there's a lot of planning time that takes place in October, November, December. Our board approves our work program for the next year, our budget for the next year, and we spend a lot of time on strategic planning, trying to figure out if we're kind of making the right steps. Did we make the right steps this past year, and what do we need to change the next year to be even better?
So a given calendar year is really a 3-quarter year as far as,
yeah.
I mean, the fourth quarter is busy getting ready for the next year.
It is, very much so. And we do obviously some big things in the fourth quarter. We still have a reasonable number of economic development visits that happen in October, November. There tend to be some announcements that happen in October, November, some commitments at least. But from an event perspective, you know, we finish up with Buy the Big O show in October, and then we have the Economic Outlook in November. And then we do our chamber drop-in December. So there's still some pretty good size events that we do that quarter. All the planning and promotion is done by then. So by then, aside from implementation, we're starting to plan for all the events that happen in the first and second quarter of the next year. So you know, there's a lot of work that still has to be done, but we have to overlap on top of that, just like you do for your year end. You close out the stuff you promised to get done and hopefully exceed those goals, but then next year is coming. And what you don't want to do is start January without the plan, because then you spend 90 days building the plan, and you've lost a quarter of the year. So our goal is to have the plan in place, get the budget approved, and by the time January rolls around, we're ready to kick butt and take names again. And so we kind of come in just really running to try and make sure we're hitting our numbers.
I know I've never asked you this. I don't know if anybody ever has, or if you've thought about it. But given what you just said about the fourth quarter, what's the most important quarter for the chamber?
You know, I think it tends to be the first quarter. And I say that because it is really easy to lose January. By the time people ease back in and you answer some questions that maybe didn't get answered in the last year, it's easy to sort of not kick into gear real fast, number one. Number two, January tends to be our largest billing month for both members as well as for Prosper Omaha investors. So it's a big financial month for us that we need to make sure that we're on top of all of those, the dues, the invoices are going out on time and that we're collecting them on time. Then we have a couple of our biggest events in that first quarter. You know, the annual meeting, which is a big event for us every year. The Young Professional Summit is a big event for us. Those are probably our two biggest events from an attendance perspective. And so I think the first quarter probably sets the tone for the rest of the year.
Well, let's dig into 2015 then and,
Sure.
and talk about the first quarter. This is the fourth quarter wrap-up show, but we're talking about goals for 2015. There are
Right.
basically three of them: growing, recruiting, and retaining talent and workforce, creating new businesses and jobs, investments, and then fostering a more competitive business environment.
Right.
So before we break those down, how do you go about setting those goals?
Well, a lot of it is based on the strategic work that we've done prior to. So we've talked a lot about Prosper Omaha on this show before. That's our 5-year economic development strategy. That strategy was built in 2012 and 13 and then started implementation in 14. So it set some 5-year goals that we needed to achieve. We knew we weren't going to do every program or start every program in year one, that there was a building block concept, that you do something in year one, you build on that for year two and then for year three. So part of the strategy for building the work program for this next year is essentially a continuation of what we had started in the prior year, and then a building block process for we accomplished A, now we have to do B. That's the first big piece of it. So we build that strategy based on what we've done in the past and what we anticipate the challenges are going to be in the future. And then we try and apply some real-time reality to it. So if we predicted that the economy was going to grow at a 5% GDP growth rate nationally, which would have been a gross overstatement, we would have had to readjust our old program because it grew at 2.5% or 3%. Mm-hmm. So we've got to be somewhat realistic about what we can achieve based on the environment that we're operating in. So a good example legislatively, our goals this year were far different than what they might have been if it wasn't for the fact we have a brand new governor, we have a huge governor transition process going on, all new directors of the major departments at the state level. And so it was going to be really hard to predict what we could get done in the legislature. So this is a very different year for us where we didn't have a very specific hard set agenda for what we're going to try and get done. We had a few things we knew we were going to work on, but it was unclear what role the governor was going to play in that and if he was going to have an agenda that he wanted to work on. So it's a very different year for us. In a normal year, like I said, we'd have 4 or 5 bills that we're going to try and get passed. We'd know who was going to carry them. We knew what it was going to take to get them passed. We'd do all the work necessary. This year, it's much more of a, we think we want to work on these issues. Let's see if we can. Let's see what else kind of pops up and kind of stay within the realm of reducing taxes, reducing regulation, making us more competitive, improving the quality of life and the quality of education, staying within those rail lines, if you will, and then see what happens.
We'll talk more specifically about that legislative agenda when we get that far, but let's go back to goal number 1, growing,
Sure.
recruiting, and retaining talent
Yep.
and the workforce needed for the future.
Yeah, I would say that, and we've said this before, that in the next 5 years, if we don't figure this out, we will not be the kind of community that we all want it to be 10 years from now. Because this is about winning the economic development game and the quality of life game, I think, is all about making sure that your people have the best education they can have, and therefore you're producing the most effective workforce you can for your business community. If we're going to grow businesses here, we've got to have the people for them to hire. If we're going to attract businesses here, we've got to have the people for them to hire.
And where are we in that, in terms of reality in that sense?
Well, we have some really strong attributes of our workforce, and we got some challenges in certain areas. So there's no doubt that we have one of the most productive workforces in the country. There's no doubt from the data you can see that we have the highest adult participation rate of our adult population working than you'll find anywhere else in the country. We have one of the lowest underemployment rates in the country. So in short, we got a lot of people working. and the businesses are happy with what they're doing as employees. They're paid well, but not overly for the work that they're doing. It's very competitive. Benefits are competitive. Their output is exceptional. Their loyalty to their company is exceptional. Turnover is low. All those things you want to say about an existing workforce is there.
However,
there are about a good example is about 1,400 IT jobs that are vacant right now. So if I told you as a board member, let's say, that we had a client, a technology company that wanted to bring 1,400 jobs here, and they were going to pay an average of $80,000 a year, but we'd probably do just about everything we could to get that company here. Reality is that all we got to do is help fill the jobs that are already here, and we have an opportunity to have exactly the same economic impact just by helping existing companies. So the challenge is, how do we find those 1,400 people? In the short term, there's limited resources for that. There are existing colleges and universities that crank out a certain number of IT professionals every year. It's smaller than what we need it to be, I mean, particularly in this particular market. There are colleges and universities around us, in the states around us, where companies here recruit every year. But again, those are entry-level folks, and it takes a little while for them to be productive, and even the sheer numbers of those aren't enough. So then we have to be about the business of helping companies recruit folks to come here, particularly in the short term. So I think I might have talked about in our last visit, maybe I didn't, because it probably happened in the fourth quarter. We went to Seattle, Washington with our We Don't Coast brand.
yes, we did talk about that. Mhm.
And tried to find a number of people who were being laid off by Microsoft.
Yes.
They announced they were laying off 1,500 people. And so we put a program together to try and get them to think about Omaha as a place to have an IT career.
Very creative program.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We did things on Craigslist and in Reddit and LinkedIn and Facebook, and went to a conference for IT people. It was a lot of fun.
Did it work?
Well, you know, it generated a lot of interest. So we put a website together that was specifically targeted at this effort. We ended up with 1,600 people clicking on our website, and the only way they could know about it is by seeing the stuff we sent them. So we know that we drove the pass-throughs to our website. They spent an average of 4.5 minutes on the website each. We generated 900 distinct Twitter conversations, people seeing our stuff and communicating back and forth with each other about it. And so we know that it drove interest. So we had about 500,000 impressions. So of those 500,000, 1,600 chose to do something on the website, and 900 people talked about it. So, you know, I think we saw stuff driven to the website. Now we're working with the companies who were on that website with us to see if any of that activity was driven to their HR departments to see what kind of contacts they've had. The good news is we proved that we could drive people to our content. Now we got to take it to the next step and see what it's going to take to get people to kind of pull the trigger and say, yeah, we'll work there. But it was the first time we'd ever done something like this. So we intend to go to several cities this year with a very similar kind of messaging, because we know that there are 57 occupations that are really critical to the industry clusters that we have here in Omaha, that the supply of workers do not meet the demand for workers, 57 of them. Some of them,
What
like,
are the numbers? You said 1,400 in IT.
you know, I don't know what the total is, tell you the truth. I should have that number.
That's
and
fine.
I'll have to ask my crack staff to get me that number, because it's a really good question. But what we do know is, and some anecdotal stuff, there's 240 pipe fitters that come through kind of all the variety of training programs that come through Metro and through the unions and all that stuff every year. But right now there's a demand for almost 1,000 of them. So there's 700 spaces either going unfilled, or they're being brought in from other communities, and that money is leaving Omaha and going back home because they're not moving here. They're coming here temporarily for the jobs.
Right. Like Alaska,
Yeah,
sort of.
yeah, really. Or North Dakota, Wyoming.
yeah,
I mean,
North
all those places where people say, "Hey, there's jobs there. I'm going to go there," but they have never an intention of living there.
Right.
We need to convince those folks to live here, number one. But if we can't get them to do that, at least we got to find people to fill those jobs. So the program now has been about how do we create, and actually we focus this particular quarter on tech jobs. So we've pulled more than 100 volunteers from businesses and universities and K through 12 training organizations, and we've run them through a facilitated strategy process to say, how can we create the tech jobs of the future? We want to become one of the top 5 tech IT communities in the country from when it comes to a workforce perspective. How do we do that? And so we've worked the last 90 to 120 days building that strategy. It's really going well, and we think by the end of the second quarter, we should actually be in some kind of an implementation stage of seeing what it takes to get all the colleges and universities aligned so that they know what part of the pipeline they're supposed to be providing. The business community communicating even more effectively with their educational institutions, so the educational institutions know directly what it is the business community needs. Create some partnerships, so if equipment needs to be provided, businesses, communities can do that, so that the schools can provide really hands-on, real-time, up-to-date training for their students. And in the end, build the pipeline, build the funnel, so we have more kids coming out the other end with IT careers.
You're talking about education and training so that we aren't talking about these, in this case, 1,400 jobs that are unfilled, basically.
Right.
But it kind of begs the question. I mean, there's this vacuum right now. There's this need right now. How long does current industry in the Omaha area stay in the Omaha area if that's a continuous struggle?
That's a great question. If there is any good news in all of this, is that the same kind of positions that we are struggling to fill, virtually every community in the country is struggling to fill. So
we're not unique.
We're not unique. So a company that says, I've got 10 jobs open in Omaha would pretty much probably have those same 10 jobs open in other places with similar quality of life, similar cost structure, similar market location. Okay, so those things do change, though. So if somebody is in California, they may be able to say, well, I've got access to a larger number of tech workers, but their cost of living is much higher, their taxes are a lot higher, their cost of doing business is much higher, so their profitability is much lower. So if you put demands around it, you just kind of circle everybody and say, we're all going to be in this kind of an environment. If you're in the Midwest now, you're going to stay in the Midwest. Chances are you're going to have this problem. That doesn't mean, though, that we can't figure out a way to solve it and therefore become the top of the heap when it comes to tech workers, right?
Right.
So if everybody is facing the same problem, if we're the only one with the answer, then we're going to become the location of choice, not just for companies, but also for people who want jobs in those fields. Because again, if you have people, it's going to drive more investment. More investment is going to drive more job openings. That's going to drive more people. There really is this circular reference kind of thing that happens.
And it suggests that there's this boom just kind of smoldering underground, very close to the surface. Think of the economic impact it would be on this community if you could deliver those jobs.
Right, absolutely. And if we do it in tech, which I believe we can and will, and I know I'm paid to be optimistic. I think I've said that a million times on this show, but in reality, it's not hyperbole. I mean, there really is an opportunity for us to figure this out, to produce higher volumes of graduates in areas where there are going to be jobs waiting for those graduates, and potentially reduce the number of graduates that we produce that don't have jobs waiting for them in this market. And see, that's the choice. It isn't a matter of having to have 40% more kids going through the system.
Go into the right fields.
It's saying you don't need to be this when I need you to do this, and by the way, this pays more money than that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think a lot of it is about just changing our whole perspective about what careers are out there and how do we entice young people to engage in those careers that have great opportunity for earnings, but maybe just aren't right now on the top people's list. So it's been a really interesting first quarter. What's interesting in this scenario too is it ties very closely with our young professionals work. We just finished our Young Professionals Summit for this year. We had a couple of great speakers.
Let's take a look at a video.
Sure, let's do that.
Because that'll give our viewers an idea of what it was. It was on March 5th, a Thursday, 1,300 professionals, young professionals in attendance.
Yeah, we actually almost 1,500 this year. We were just shy of the John Legend record year. When he was there, it was really big. But it was a huge, huge event, and it was very, very successful.
Let's take a look.
Today is the Greater Omaha Young Professionals YP Summit. It's the 10th anniversary of the event. We have about 1,450 attendees this year, which is our second largest summit ever. Today's theme focuses around science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and it's develop the core, so develop you, develop us, develop growth. The reason we chose that theme is because really focusing on the workforce needs in our community and there's a huge skills mismatch in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math degrees. So we want to bring that awareness to young professionals and really help them understand how they can get involved, why it matters to the growth of Omaha.
We were asked to be involved in the summit a few months ago and just really honored to be a part of the whole experience. There's so many great speakers here today and so many great people in attendance as well. So really humbled by the whole experience. It's just great to be involved in the community, and we like to say yes to everything and just take chances. That's what Hutch is all about, is just kind of moving forward with ideas and expression and stuff like that. So really happy to be here today and really honored to be a part of the conversation.
I just love seeing all the excited, inspired, and passionate people talking about what they do. I absolutely love it. It makes me more inspired to do what I do.
One of the things that's unique about Omaha is that you do have a lot of proximity to the ability to change the city that you're in. There aren't a lot of barriers as far as structure and power, so you do have the opportunity to create what you think we lack. So take that lead, talk to people about it, but do something.
I think young people, whether they realize it or not, I think all people actually want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, something that they can be proud of. Younger folks are very autonomous, so I think the fact that we have a lot of autonomy and people have a lot of power to make their own decisions and forge their own path at QLI. But it boils down to just being proud of what you do and who we serve, being proud of your team, being connected to your direct supervisor. Leadership is really, really important out at QLI. And ultimately, if you can be proud of your company, I think those three things, then you've really struck gold.
This is a great day for young professionals to sort of connect with each other and also to see what is going on in their own city, because sometimes you could be in your own little world, and when you come here you understand like sort of the landscape of other little areas of Omaha and take action and maybe instill some passion that you didn't know otherwise was there.
Young professionals really want to get involved in Greater Omaha. They really care about the community, they care about their personal professional growth, they care about the growth of Omaha. We have over 7,000 young professionals on our email listserv, over 5,000 on Twitter, about 5,000 on our Facebook likes. So young professionals really care about getting involved, making a change, developing themselves, and making our community a better place.
You have an opportunity to meet people who are outside your normal daily life, but are also interested in the same things you are, and in change, in making the city a better place, and in having a voice. It's really important to be able to meet people who will become your co-conspirators, your collaborators, and your friends.
Okay, there you have a glimpse of what happened at the YP Summit.
Yeah, we were really pleased with the outcome. I think the speakers were designed to get people talking about how they should be thinking about getting things done in their lives, what they think philosophically, how do you engage in conversation, how do you build your own leadership skills, how do you get involved in your community. You know, we have 7,000 young professionals who pay attention to what the Young Professionals Council does. You know, they're on our social media and they're on our website and all those kind of things. But to have almost 1,500 of them spend the day with us and have their companies endorse that and embrace that, it was really a spectacular event.
How did the summit address what we were talking about a while ago, and that is filling this need for specific kinds of jobs?
Well, the whole topic was that we called it STEAM. We added arts into science, technology, education, and math, or engineering and math, and added arts to it. So it was all about tech jobs, the kinds of skills that people need. And so we had actually exhibitors there of companies that were startups that were showing the different kinds of technology they were developing. So we tried to focus attention on the fact that this is really where the core of our economy is going to be running over the next 2-3 decades. And we want people to, if they're not in that field, to understand how what they are doing supports that field.
Yes.
And if they aren't in that
doesn't.
field, or doesn't, and so maybe rethink, is this where I want to be? And if you're in that field, understand how important it is that you can have a career here that's going to be an aggressive one, that you're going to be successful in. you don't have to look elsewhere to find those kind of jobs because they're here in Omaha and Nebraska already.
Along with goal number 1, the growing and recruiting of talent. Probably ought to mention I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the show. You've got a We Don't Coast T-shirt on here.
Yeah, I'm doing the whole We Don't Coast gig
Yeah,
today
take a
because
look at that.
I have a speech I'm giving about branding to another chamber in the state right after this. So I'm hopping in a car and zooming out west. So I figured I might as well wear it on TV too. So
And that's about recruiting talent.
it
Again.
is. Yeah, we use it not only for recruiting businesses but also about recruiting talent. So.
The Association of Information Technology Professionals National Conference.
Yeah, we've been working with the Convention and Visitors Bureau for years now about trying to bring in conventions into the CenturyLink Center that have some consistency with either the target industries that we're going after or the types of individuals we're trying to recruit here. So this is a big deal. This is some really national, high-level technology students coming in for a convention here. And so a lot of our companies are going to be exhibiting there. They're going to be paying attention to it. And so we'll have a presence there as well to try and tell these folks coming from all over the country, just because you're here for a convention, don't forget about the fact that this could be the place for your next job. This is the place you ought to be considering. And maybe they'll catch the message themselves, or maybe they'll carry that message back to their peers and colleagues, and we'll end up with more of them here.
And then the Skills USA event that Metropolitan Community College
Right.
is very involved in.
It's an important event. It targets a very different skill set. While we've been talking about technology skill sets for the most part, this is about skilled trades. So this is about welders and carpenters and tool makers and folks who can work with their hands to make things happen in this country. And there'll be, I think, 1,000 young people from around the state. They'll be competing in a lot of different skill competitions and contests. And then the winners of the Nebraska contest go to nationals and try and win competitions there. And it's all about scholarships for them. So it really is an amazing group of young people. And we're pleased that we have them here. I mean, we try to do everything we can to show young people that there's job opportunities for them here.
And just because we focused on IT initially is not to suggest there isn't tremendous demand for these areas.
If I had 500 more electricians, I could put them to work today. If I had 500 more welders, I could put them to work today. You can go right down the list from steel slitters to fabricators to truck drivers. All of those make great money, and there's just not enough people here to do those jobs.
So in the end, what's the answer to finding a better way than, not that it's not creative and it might not produce, a website and targeting Microsoft.
Well, we got to do some recruiting, but I still think the best answer is that midterm answer where we convince young people that deciding early on where their interests are doesn't necessarily mean like it was when you and I were growing up. College is where everybody's going to go. We're all going to get a 4-year degree. We're all going to be lawyers or bankers or doctors. We forgot way back then that if everybody's a lawyer, a banker, or a doctor, who's going to make the stuff that we want to buy, right? And so we need to understand that there's a great set of careers out there for people that don't need to get a 4-year degree, can get some 2-year certifications or get certified by apprenticeship programs and trade unions to figure out a way they can actually use their hands and and make things.
It's kind of the European model in a way. I mean, they target, decisions are made way younger as far as kids in grade school, middle school.
Right, West Germany used to do that a lot. And actually South Carolina, when I was down there, started a program where you could, once you got to be a sophomore in high school, you had to choose which path you were taking. A career path or a college path. And you could always cross back over if you wanted to. But if you took the career path, it gave you exposure to all those things you could do with your hands, whether it's IT or whether it's welding. And if you took the college path, it prepared you for going to college and learning those professional skills that you need to learn.
And Metropolitan Community College does a wonderful job of engaging students in the middle and senior high school level in some respects with regard to this conversation. But do we have the population producing enough children so that we can go into the middle schools? I don't know what age is the magic age to get them, but do we have?
I think so. Our population growth here is about 1.5% a year. We're trying to grow that to 2 or 3% a year. Some of that is new people coming to town, but there's about as many births as there are deaths in the state. But we're still a relatively young state. As a region, we're pretty young average age here too. So I think there's still going to be plenty of young people coming in through the system. We just have to show them what those choices are. And I think we think middle school is a place to start exposing young people to what kind of career opportunities there are out there. and then making sure that they actually have an opportunity to take it to the next level if they want to. I mean, the days of, I understand there actually are high schools here that still have some shop classes and cooking classes and those kinds of things, but for the most part, they have been diminishing over time. Our approach is with the new technology or the new industry training center you folks are going to be building here. That's a great opportunity for public schools to partner with the community college and say we're going to have a lot more opportunities for young people to have hands-on training in some of these skilled trades so that we're making stuff again.
Okay, let's go on to goal number 2, creating, growing, and recruiting businesses and jobs and investments in the region.
It's what we do all the time, so your viewers will not be surprised that it's still a key priority for us. We're doing that first thing we talked about because of this second goal,
Sure.
right? If there were plenty of people around, we wouldn't be talking about.
Well, maybe you better
the
take a
talent
break
stuff.
from that for a while.
Heck no.
Until the
I have heard that, and that just makes me shake in my boots when that happens. I a long time ago.
you want to have this demand.
You
for
do want to have
employees.
demand. It's a lot better to be able to say I've got more jobs available than I have people, than I have more people available than I have jobs. Now I understand that we have pockets of unemployment, and we're still working on that. We still have areas where not everybody is prospering from this growing economy, and we need to fix that. So 3% unemployment, in reality, we're probably closer to 5 or 6. I mean, just because you don't count the people that have dropped out of the workforce. Some people have stopped looking for work.
Rush Limbaugh suggests 95 million, I think he said.
Nationally, yeah. I mean, there's the big number across the country. Of course, the number does get bigger as you go across the country. I think it dropped down to 5.5% this past couple of days. But in reality, there's at least 2 or 3 more percentage points of people that have just dropped off the labor force. And you can just see that by looking at the labor force numbers. Labor force numbers are down over what they've been over the past few years. But that also is an opportunity. We've got people out there that have given up. Well, that's a target audience that we can say, look, we need to bring you back into the workforce in a productive way. So we need to make it possible for them to do that. So how do you do that? First, make sure there's jobs available. Second, do the talent stuff that we talked about. Make sure that there's training available for the kind of jobs that are available. So we don't think that you can stop. We're doing economic development just because we happen to have relatively low unemployment right now. So we're not. So we're going to continue calling on existing companies and traveling and working, trying to close out the backlog, which is the largest backlog we've ever had since I've been here. Some of the largest projects that I've seen since I've been here we're working with right now. So the good news is we're doing things that are attracting the attention of larger companies with larger projects and a lot of other companies that have realized this is a good market for them.
What can you talk about any of those that you were referring to?
The biggest one that we've landed recently is XTL, I think. And that's
Cold
a
storage facility?
Cold storage facility. Doesn't sound real exciting, but it's almost a $60 million investment. It's going in Council Bluffs. This is one of our new regional partners, of course. They looked at both sides of the river and found a site that was perfect for them in Council Bluffs. And so they're going to be building this big facility there and hiring a couple hundred people, I think. And it'll be a nice facility for them. But it's a large investment.
That begs the question. Obviously, when the decision was made by XLT to do this, they looked at the workforce and saw that we're producing the right kind of trainees and educated employees, right?
Yeah, and so I didn't want to make the case. I hope I didn't make the case in our first conversation here that
it's all IT.
That it's all IT, number one, or that there's just nobody available to work. There's we guesstimate about 40,000 people that are consider themselves underemployed. They're currently working. They're probably working part-time. If given the opportunity to get the training and then to get into a higher paying job, they would take it. So we think there's a pool of people out there, and we prove it every time we bring a company to town and they find the people they're looking for.
Because they're better paying jobs.
Right, and so we know there's people there. We just got to make sure that we're able to find those folks and get them trained and get them into these new jobs. So, we've been working on a lot of new targets that we've been paying attention to. Randy Thalen has a real different approach to how we define what we're going after and what we're going after. Randy, by the way, is our new Vice President for Economic Development of the Chamber. We moved him here from Grand Rapids about a year ago.
Let's talk about those. Financial services, value-added agriculture, and military. Yeah.
So let's start with the military, and then we'll work the other way. Military has really 2 big pieces to it. One, how do we make sure the base stays open? Depending upon who you talk to, $2.5 to $4 billion economic impact every year.
Is there any danger of that?
Well,
real danger of that not happening? Or
Well,
that happening?
there is a process called BRAC, the Base Realignment and Closure Commissions, which enables all of the armed services to suggest what excess capacity they have in facilities and to recommend closing those that they believe are inefficient and don't need to be opened any longer.
And that's a moving target.
It is. Last time we went through a BRAC process, I believe, was in 2005 or 6. It's estimated that we will do another BRAC process in 2017. If we do one in 2017, we need to start now preparing for BRAC. And there's a whole process you go through for the military to assess your community and the support you have for bases, what's the positive points and the negative points for your base for either existing missions you have on your base or new missions you could bring there or missions that need to be taken from your base and sent somewhere where it could be done more efficiently. And so last time we did this, we kind of broke even, but we didn't gain a couple that we probably should have gained. I think we just didn't quite have our act together.
How much of this depends on the chops your congressional delegation brings to the table?
A good bit of it. So are they on the right committees? Are they engaged in the process? Are they intent upon the process? So we've hired a consultant to come in and do an assessment of the risk factors that we have at our base. We're just getting that report now, and we'll be presenting it to our board here in the next few weeks. And then we'll be presenting it to our legislators, both at the state level as well as federally. We've created a military TAG committee that is about made up of mostly ex-military and defense contractors working on this very issue so that we're prepared when the time comes out that we can work with the base to make the best case we possibly can to protect ourselves and potentially even end up on a positive side after a BRAC process. Now, in between now and 2017, and remember this process will take at least a year, so theoretically now to 2018, there's still a lot of moving parts in the military. And so we're starting to see sequestration kind of go away, and so maybe some refunding of some things that need to get funded. We've got some major construction projects going on at the base already, particularly the STRATCOM headquarters, which is huge. It's a $1 billion project, largest MILCON project the Air Force has going right now. We've got some other projects out there we need to get done from a capital improvement perspective so that the flying missions out there continue to be viable. So we got a lot of work to do to make sure we keep working with our partners out there at the base and at STRATCOM to keep those missions there and make them grow. So in addition to the BRAC stuff, we're always working on trying to find more missions. And as more money comes into the military, that means contract opportunities exist for private defense contractors, and so we continue to work with them about expanding here too.
So that's the military piece.
That's the military
And then
piece.
you got the value-added agriculture.
Value-added ag is really important. We knew that ag was something that we should be playing in that space, if you will. We've had an ag council for years and years and years at the chamber.
What does value-added ag mean?
Well, essentially, you take the raw product, meat and grain, and you process it and turn it into a product which is then sold in the market. So you add value through processing. So you could say ag processing just as easily. Mm-hmm. And what we have found, ironically, with the consultants that looked at this and ourselves, is that with all of the ag products that are grown in this state, processing is really not one of our attributes. We don't do a lot of it. And we can do more of it. And so we're starting to engage in research about how we can embrace ag processing as a growth industry here.
Good old-fashioned industry, basically. I mean,
it is that. We have Kellogg's is a cereal maker.
Yeah.
They take grain, they turn it into cereal. That's great. We need to do more of that. We can do this.
Why would we not have been over the decades? Why transport all these raw materials elsewhere?
I think it just sort of has happened. The industry sort of did what it was going to do, and we just haven't focused a lot of attention on what should have been an obvious target for us. We never turned it away, but we never aggressively went after it either. Now, the lone exception to that is the Cargill campus up in Washington County, and ethanol. Those are probably the two big exceptions to the rule. And we have been very aggressive in trying to help Cargill find all the suppliers and all the folks that they need to be up there. And it was just sort of a light bulb moment that says, well, heck, if it works up there, why can't it work across the rest of our region?
So what's the more specific niche focus when you talk about ag products and let's do this with them here?
Yeah, well, I think it hits all four verticals. So it hits the entrepreneurship vertical, there are startups all around the country that are playing in that ag space in some way or another. They should be here. This is the place they can get all the access to research that's done every day. This is the place they can find all the experts about ag. If you're going to be starting up something in ag, you should be in the Midwest, and so you should be here. If you're an existing small business and you're in that ag space, we should be able to introduce you to people who can help grow your business more. So better customers, international trade. I mean, how do we grow existing small businesses so that they can become bigger businesses? We should be able to expand those ag businesses that are here already by helping them produce their product more cheaply. So whether it's through public policy work or through incentives when they're bidding for business within their own companies, we should be able to help them grow. And then finally, we should be able to try to recruit companies that are going to be in that ag space as well. And so if you take all those 4 verticals and realize they're all valid in this space, we can be pretty aggressive in this space. And so we're doing a lot of research to tell us where we should be spending our time and energy. We're now at the point where we have produced a document that was just presented to the governor's conference on agriculture this week. And we laid out our strategy about how ag in Omaha benefits the entire state. There really is no rural-urban divide when it comes to agriculture, and we want to be able to do what we can to help those rural producers of products, of agricultural products, have a place where they can be processed here in the state so they can make more money too.
Absolutely. So that's kind of a new focus, or
it is
not maybe totally
a new intensity in that focus.
Yeah.
And then financial services is something we've been doing for a long time. It's one of our key targets. It's one of our key attributes. But I think insurance, payment facilities like PayPal and those kind of things, and even credit card processing, those kind of things, which we do really well here. So think Mutual of Omaha, think First Data, think National Indemnity, think PayPal, think ACI. I mean, those kinds of companies that have a presence here, but we think we can even grow more of them. So we're going to be even more aggressive about going after those companies too.
And then you've got the International Tenant Representation Alliance.
Conference
coming up.
We're always after those consultants who are in the business of showing companies where they should locate. We've talked about site selection consultants before. That's what this group is. They're tenant representatives, so that they essentially would be a group of commercial realtor representatives who will be here. We want to make sure they know that there's a marketplace here for their companies.
David, you talked about Thrive, the hands-on small business mentoring program. Let's talk a little more about that.
Yeah, you know, we've realized that if we're going to be helping our businesses grow here, we ought to be doing more and more aggressive work with our small businesses. So we created Thrive last year to provide existing company expertise to small businesses in a very aggressive way so we can help that class of Thrive members be successful. And I think we've got a video that we can show your viewers about that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Most of us who have been successful in business are successful because sometime throughout our career we've been mentored. We've had that help. And this thing we call life, it's a relay race. And so best way for us to pass that torch is to mentor somebody else. It made perfect sense for us to come up with this program to help that small businessman take the next step. A team of us from the chamber volunteers, and you know, it's all different fields from financial to legal to marketing. I don't care what business you're in, it's always a people business. The people that are running these businesses are true and genuine and really want to do something here in this community. The Thrive program is a place where they can come and get that help, and it's good, experienced, you know, we've been through it, we've made the mistakes, we listen well, and we're going to give you good, honest feedback. The partnerships, the relationships, the friends that we've made through this process have been incredible.
So pass the torch, be a mentor, a little bit about Thrive.
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out a way that we can have experienced, successful business people provide the kind of support that businesses need. And so it's working really well. Businesses seem to be really happy with it. So then the other thing we've done for small businesses is called Biz Assist. You know, we've created a small business portal where we realize that small business owners don't often have the opportunity to pick up the phone between 9 and 5 and call us and say, I got a question about this particular problem. So we created a website they can go to on our website that and it enables them to ask questions and get those questions answered. So we're trying to provide services so small businesses can grow more easily.
So Omaha Chamber, omahachamber.com, or can you get to it on just yourbusinesses.com?
You can go to yourbusinesses.com or go to omahachamber.org and you can get there too.
Entrepreneurship and innovation begs a little bit about Cornstalks on tour.
Yeah, Cornstalks is our networking event we created several years ago that recognized the fact that we needed to have a place where the idea people and the deal people and the service people in the entrepreneurship space rubbed elbows, so that they realized that they could have a true community, if you will. And it took off like gangbusters. It was amazing to me that there was, of all the things that we do at the Chamber, networking is one of those things we do really well. And to find out, and when we were trying to figure out this entrepreneurship ecosystem, that one of the gaps was networking was a real surprise to me. But we found that CIOs and CTOs don't often hang with attorneys and bankers and investment bankers and venture capitalists. And the idea people over here don't typically talk to the CIOs and those folks. So we created Cornstalks, and this is the first year we've taken it on the road. So usually they had to come to a specific place usually at the Chamber, and we would have all of the meetings. Now we have meetings at different startups. And so these folks all get to not only experience what a startup is like, but be involved with other startups. So it works really well for them.
Let's go to goal number 3 and talk in more detail about some of those legislative efforts as we talk about fostering a more competitive business environment.
It has been a strange year for the legislature. There's some tax stuff out there. Senator Smith has a tax bill, 357, that we're supporting that provides over a 10-year period a reduction in personal income tax, individual income tax rates, corporate income tax rates, as well as expects that state government reduces its growth by 1% by 1% a year to fund all of those tax cuts. So it actually was put forth by the Platt Institute last summer, and it's something that we're supporting this year. So we'll see if that goes anywhere.
A little bit of irony there when it includes expecting a 1% decline, or needs a 1% decline by the state.
It was interesting that in the last couple of years, we had our own agenda that was about tax cuts. And our contention was that if we cut the taxes, we'll grow revenue, and that'll pay for it. The legislature won't buy it. And so what they've done here uniquely is say, okay, we'll pay for it by having a reduction in state spending. And it matches up, it's paid for, and so the fiscal note will be negligible. The question is whether or not the timing is right for this, and or whether or not the legislature is going to have the stomach for saying, after 3 years, we're going to automatically have a 1% cut here. As long as our revenue grows, we'll take the difference and we'll use that to cut taxes. We've talked about that a lot.
Yes.
That you cut the expenses, you grow the revenue, the delta ends up being what's available for whatever other growth needs you might have or for cutting tax rates. The governor is talking about keeping a real tight fist and tight rein on the growth of government. And so we're convinced that over time this could happen. This might not be the year for it. The governor wants to see property tax relief this year. There's a number of property tax rebate bills that are in there too that we're going to be heard. So it's interesting the discussion going on about taxes right now. The Chamber supported LB 586, which was a bit of a departure for us. 586 was an anti-discrimination bill that essentially created a class that you cannot discriminate against gays and lesbians in employment decisions. You may recall that the city of Omaha had an ordinance that did something similar to this in 2010. We opposed that ordinance mostly because it was a poorly written ordinance and created new commissions that were not necessary. And at the time we said, we think that these kind of policies should be passed at the state level and federal level rather than at the local level. So you don't have one community doing it and another community not. In 2012, the ordinance came back and we were neutral on it. All the bad stuff got out of the bill. We were still concerned about whether or not there were going to be a lot of lawsuits filed as a result of having this in place and no federal umbrella or state umbrella to support it. But we were neutral on it. It ended up passing. And in the intervening couple of years, we've seen negligible use of this mechanism to file for discrimination cases. I think 5 or 6 of them total, and 2 of those were thrown out right away. So when the bill came up this time, our board and our executive committee looked at it and said, you know what, it's time. This is an image issue, it's a workforce issue, it's a fairness issue. We don't want anyone to discriminate, never did want anyone to discriminate. This just makes it clear to those folks who are using your labor laws as a litmus test for are they going to move their company to your community, or if they're going to move here for their careers and they're with their families. Is there an anti-discrimination law? Or are you inclusive about gays and lesbians in your community? If you are, you have more opportunity for businesses and for people. If you're not, you lose out on some of them. So we did all the analysis and realized this was the year to support it. So we're supporting LB 586.
Probably could talk about 5 or 6, 7 more of these.
Yeah.
Which ones are the most important that we've not talked about?
Well, there's a Woodman bill which would try and clarify some of the property tax arguments that are going on now, whether or not Woodman needs to pay property taxes based on their IRS structure. We'll see how that bill does in the legislature. It was testified on recently. The zoo has a bill in that will exempt the zoo from paying sales tax on memberships and those kinds of things, which would be a big savings for the zoo. And there's a couple of other incentive bills. Yeah, we're supporting that. And there's a couple of other incentive bills that just clarify some things in the law that we're supportive of. So we're spending a lot of our time on the legislature this year actually working with the governor's office in helping them find the directors of key departments. So the governor has actually asked his financial supporters to funnel dollars through the Chamber Foundation, and then we're using that to hire search firms to hire the directors for the director of highways, the director of corrections, the director of HHS, and the director of economic development programs.
Run that by me again. The
So
Chamber now is intimately involved in the process of hiring key state positions.
We are,
Department.
although we are hiring the search firms, the state still makes the decision about who they hire.
It's the search firms.
But
Okay.
because we can run it through the Chamber Foundation, we can do it more quickly. We can hire the search firms more quickly. They can do the searches more quickly. And the private sector is paying for it because it wasn't in the state budget to pay for.
And in the end, would the names still be the same, the candidates still be the same with the other process, do you think?
You know, it could be, although our process is not necessarily based on applying to the state for something. The state rarely goes out and does searches. And so I think you probably had a different list come forward because we're aggressively seeking somebody rather than waiting for someone to reply.
Yeah.
So that's a very unique process.
Pretty interesting.
And it's worked really well. So we've raised the money privately, and it's gone through the process and still met all the public requirements for public information, and the public knows what's going on. So all we've done is facilitate the search process.
We've got a few more minutes. We can talk about anything else happening in the legislature or go on to talk about some of the upcoming events.
Yeah,
in
let's talk about some
2015.
events. You know, my favorite event of the year is the Omaha Business Hall of Fame. We induct 4 to 5 people a year into it usually. This year's event is April 14th. And we've got some really good people coming in this year. Of course, we always do. At the end of the assessment every year, when we kind of go through the nomination process, we always wonder, how is it that these people didn't get nominated before?
Yeah, I mean, there's some great names
there
this
really
year.
are. So Bill Cutler with Cutler O'Neill's Mortuaries, Healy Hoffman, Dvork, and Cutler Mortuaries. I mean, they're all, he's been in the business for a long, long time. They've been great in this community, and we're really happy to have him as one. Sid Dinsdale with Pinnacle Bank. Everybody knows Pinnacle and Sid. Stan Olson, recently deceased.
How did he never? How did he not?
You wonder.
Wind up there when he was still here.
He was growing this
Yeah.
business and had been growing it by leaps and bounds for years and
Yeah.
years. So you would expect that he would have been in. So
Yeah.
he's a really good one.
You bet.
Robert Reed, most recently retired CEO of Physicians Mutual, and Bill Sapp with the Sapp brothers. So it'll be
And Lee.
and Lee. We have
Yeah.
Bill and Lee Sapp.
Yeah.
So we're getting them both in this year. So it'll be a great event, and the tickets are on sale. You can call the chamber and figure out a way to get access if you want to support those folks.
Yeah. Anything else come to mind in terms of huge events in the rest of the calendar year?
You know, we have a golf outing, of course, that comes in June, and we'll be getting ready for that here pretty quickly. We're going to be doing some modifications on the Buy the Big O show this year, so I think some pretty big news will be coming out about that soon. We're not quite ready with it yet. But
What do you mean?
well, you know, it's probably time to freshen up that model.
Okay.
Trade shows around the country have become.
But your numbers have been good.
They have, but they've been going down steadily year after year. So when I first got here, we netted about $250,000 from that. It was a big moneymaker for us, and now we're netting 130, 140. We're down probably 40% in the number of booths from 12 years ago to now.
So when can we expect word on the tweaking of this?
Sometime,
Is,
I would
is tweaking
imagine,
a good word? Or,
tweaking may
or a
be,
major tweak?
It's a major tweak. I think tweaking is probably an understatement. It's going to be a significant shift.
Yeah.
I think probably June timeline. Maybe when I come back in June, we'll be able to talk a bit about what the new look
Ideas.
by the Big O.
But
thing
there will be an event?
Oh yeah, there will be an
Yeah.
event, and actually we're going to probably have several small, actual by the Big O kind of events. So people who do want to be exhibiting will have an opportunity to do it, but some smaller events throughout the year. So it'll be interesting.
Paradigm shift
Very much so.
for by the Big O.
We're going to try and do something that's never been done here in the community, which is why I can't define it for you, because if it's never been done, I can't say it's like this or it's like
Yeah.
that. We're trying to come up with something really innovative and
Well, rest
and high
assured, we
energy.
don't coast, so it'll
We-
be.
Yeah, we don't coast and we don't rest in our laurels either. We're trying to figure something out, so it'll be a lot of fun.
I didn't ask. We talked about the state legislative effort, the agenda. Anything happening in local politics, more locally, that might affect business industry this year?
You know, I think we've talked a little bit about the land bank and that having been passed, and there'll be a lot of discussions about getting that up to speed. They're actually going through a search process, probably using the Chamber Foundation for that search process too, to hire a new director. So that'll be a good effort. That's important. I think the mayor and city council have been dealing with a couple of issues, purchasing, minority purchasing as an example for some of the big construction projects. So whether it's OPS, which OPS manages, or the CSO project, which is the big sewer project, there's been a continued effort to try and have more of those subcontracts and contracts go to emerging businesses, which tend to be either ethnic or gender or veteran-owned businesses. It's difficult in this size of market to have that be as much as you'd like it to be. But there's been some noise made recently about whether or not that effort's been effective. So I think you're going to see more and more discussion about that over the next several months. But I think really the locally things are going well. The budgets look good. I think the relationships are good. So I think things are going well.
That's great. Anything we've not talked about momentum-wise that could affect things the rest of this year?
You know, I think one thing that may have been understated, and this is going to go back to politics a little bit, we have a very pro-business environment here. And we have some really great spokespeople for this community. So I have no fear about putting the mayor as an example in front of any business person and having her talk about how important it is for them to invest in this community. And now we have a governor who knows business, speaks the language, and wants to be an active part of the economic development process. And so we're going to be recommending to him and his new economic development director, Brenda Hicks Sorensen, to use him on a really regular basis in calling business leaders who are looking at our community and saying, look, I'm formerly a business person. I know what you're talking about. Let's talk brass tacks here, and let's have a personal relationship and see if we can make these deals work in Nebraska. I think he's going to be an outstanding asset for us in that regard.
You put him on the payroll then?
He's already on the payroll.
Yeah,
That's why we all
yes.
pay taxes, right?
Very good. As usual, great conversation, and look forward to
Thanks a lot.
the next one. Thanks,
That was
David.
fun.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you for being with us, too, on Metro and More. Our goal is to better acquaint you with the mission, leadership, and the reach of the college. For Metropolitan Community College, I'm Kent Pavelka.
This has been a MetroVision production produced by Metropolitan Community College.
At Metropolitan Community College, the faculty bring more than just their degrees. They bring international experience, decades of industry expertise, and creativity that transcends the classroom. Through quality instruction and one-on-one attention, we deliver the skills and education students need for success.
In 2012, MCC added $93.8 million to the local economy via Brain Gain. The experienced option is Metropolitan Community College.
As a student at Metropolitan Community College, you're part of something exceptional. You're part of a 40-year progression of excellence. You're part of the second largest institution of higher learning in Nebraska, part of a movement of emerging technology and dynamic partnerships with business and industry. You're part of an investment in this community to make it one of the best places to live and work in the nation. As a student at Metropolitan Community College, you're part of an exceptional opportunity. Metropolitan Community College.